ladies first.
How long was you in alcoholic?
I think I can pinpoint when I first became an active alcoholic when I was about 19. I liked to drink, and I liked to drink heavily. But there was a point where in my life where something really, really bad happened, and it came from wanting a drink to going into the off-licence, grabbing a bottle of scotch and downing most of it within about half an hour. That's when I think I became an alcoholic. I think that the foundations have been there most of my life. I got when I was a kid and that. And alcohol gave me confidence in myself, and it looked good when I was at school, because I'd go to the pub and get beers in and stuff like that. And then you know, that's really where it started, and then it's been sort of heavy drinking on and off throughout my life, more so when I've been mentally unwell, because I'm bipolar or manic depressive more direct way of sort of looking at it. And my drinking gets worse when I'm depressed or high. So it's a chicken and egg situation, really.
What was your favourite drink?
When I first started drinking, it was real ales, because Camera had started and we went to brewing our own beers. When I first became an alcoholic, it was mainly about half a bottle of rum in the morning before I went to work, drinking scotch through the day, drinking beer in the evening, drinking scotch again in the night parties and that we used to have when I was a nurse and stuff. So really, whiskies and beers really, as my main points. Or vodka sometimes if I didn't want to smell my breath. Sometimes I was so bad in the mornings that I'd be puking up, and I was drinking at the same time, puking up, drinking. That was vodka. I'd do a bottle before I went to the pub. Most of my drinking was mainly in the pub.
So those like the sort of drinks that you'd go into a shop to buy something like crisps, and then you see them on your shelf, and they'd like be looking at you. And
Well, it was. Well, I knew specifically what I wanted.
Yeah.
It wasn't the advertising. It's because the environment I was brought up in. My mum liked more whiskies, and even back as far as I remember, at the age of about 7 or 8, I'd see her drinking it to unwind. And so when they weren't looking, I used to have a bit, same with smoking, she used to smoke. I used to get a dog in and get out in the garden and smoke and have a little bottle of whiskey that she didn't notice us. But it started really when about 6 or 7 years old, really, that's the foundation. Yeah.
So how much do you think you've spent, like money-wise, per weekly?
That's a tricky one, that.
Money was worth a lot more.
I would say this time last year was a really bad year. I was in crisis from day to day, hour by hour, with my manic depression and my alcohol consumption. And I suppose I was doing about a bottle of scotch, that'd be about 12 quid, about 15 pints of Stella. So I'd say, 50 quid a day on a bad day. I spent on savings, then I crashed, and I don't spend that sort of money anymore. So a lot of money, because I didn't like the weak drink, weak lagers and all strong ones. I did like Stella in the pub, so I like to socialise, but so I do that, then I go home and I have maybe a couple of bottles of red wine and maybe a half bottle of scotch or something like that, a few more cans, just depending on how long I stay conscious for, really.
What was the effect on your family and friends? What was their overall opinion on what she was going through? Yes.
Nightmare. When you're young, you party and you drink, and I didn't do drugs. I used to do a bit of blow, but I didn't mix with the drink really. It used to make me sick, so I didn't smoke blow. But yeah, I mean, everybody thought, because alcoholics have got a different metabolism from most people. You can drink far more and still stay sober. Well, you think you're sober. You're in alcoholic days most of the time, but you're handling yourself okay. So you don't know what it's like to be sober, really. So I was held in esteem by various people. I could drink and drink and drink and still be okay. And also, my liver was metabolising very well. I've never had any sort of real liver problems, considering that. So yeah, so people would say, good old Gray, you know, have a beer and stuff like that, party animal. That was good. And then family came along and worked as a psychiatric nurse. And my bipolar cut in when I was about 30. I had my first mega high, and I was doing my job as a professional psychiatric nurse, but I was handing out tablets that they wanted me to take, the psychiatrist in there, and I didn't want to take them. So I didn't want to admit to myself that I got this problem. And so I limped in and out, working and then not working. Anyway, as things got worse and worse and worse, I just kept on drinking more and more, stopped taking all the medication, and getting arrested by the police. I was detained in hospital on a section, in a lock unit. My mate stood by me. My wife did to a certain extent, but she couldn't understand the change in me. So I'd become really chronic by then. And so I ended up in hospital, and then I knew she didn't want me home. She's such a kind lady, she wouldn't have told me. She would have had me back, but I didn't want to put that on her. So I declared myself homeless, so I ended up in the Hotel Victoriana 2002, and that's how I came to be on the island. And then, since 2002 up till September last year, I've just been drinking, apart from the crisis stuff, just drinking, not doing anything, really sitting at home, smoking, drinking, watching telly. All my dreams and aspirations are gone. I was just in suspended animation in a way. Last September I was in hospital at Canterbury, and I met a chap there called Andrew, and I'd met him before in Ashford about 10 years previously as another patient. And he said, what were you used to talk about, Graham? And I said, music and religion and stuff. And yeah, all right. So I told him a little bit about what happened. And then a couple of years previously I met Tony and told me about the community church. And this guy Andrew, well, yeah, upset. This guy Andrew was pouring with rain. I was having a fag. He didn't smoke, and he just came out and he held my hand. So I'm going to pray that you won't drink anymore. And bang! No, it's fine. From that moment on, I knew I wasn't going to drink anymore, and I didn't. I still haven't. And I'm getting myself back together again now. And I haven't drunk since then. I've done the 12 steps of AA, and we've been setting up a group when we get the premises sorted. So I believe that is the way to remain sober, and that belief in God and Jesus is the pathway to sobriety being enjoyable rather than having to take anti-abuse and, you know, sleeping tablets and all that sort of stuff. And also not drinking my medication for my manic depression is going to work. And so, you know, I should remain stable for quite some time now.
I bet that's reassuring for you to think that you've done it and you can carry on.
I carry on a normal life. I mean, I do the same sorts of things that other people do. It's just that I don't abuse myself or anybody else. My wife and daughter are the only family I have. Proud of me and got my respect back. And yeah, so touch wood. I know with manic depression, even if you're on medication, you can still go downhill. but I'm surrounding myself with enough people who know me pretty intimately and that I trust, and if I start going up or down, then they'll tell me and then go the right route to get the proper treatment. Without the drink, I think I'm going to be fine.
So did you ever get violent when you were drinking?
No, not really. No. I've seen a lot of violence. Got that on the street in Faversham. Yeah, I guess the only time I've really been violent towards someone else was my brother-in-law got right in my face. He was drunk and he went, come on, hit me, sort of bang, and I just sort of tapped him on the jaw. That's the only time I've ever hit anyone.
Have you ever been arrested due to your addiction?
Yep. About 3 times for being drunk, not disorderly, just being drunk. But that has been when I've been on a high and I've been drinking, and the police have sort of misinterpreted it as being drunk, when in fact it was the mental illness and the drink to a certain extent.
Yeah.
The local cops are okay. I was arrested once up in London by the Met, and but they were really good. I found the police really good. In fact, I've been invited to address later on in the year local groups of policemen and trainee police officers, both in the experience of being arrested and also from my perspective as a psychiatric nurse, when people are brought by the police into you and you have to assess them with a doctor and a social worker to see what's the best course of action for those people. So, yeah, so, no, I haven't really got a record as such, you know.
Are there any times like you can't remember what's happened, what you've done?
Yeah.
And, your friends told you something that you've done and you've just been like, what? You done? Seriously?
Not so much that, in that it's just, I can remember the important things, it's just that, sort of just a few blanks.
Minor details.
A few minor details, a few blanks, apart from, say, the last 10 years when, I was in a state of suspended animation, which I can't really, I don't punch from people and that, but I can't think what I used to do with my time. I don't know, I was just a sort of like a non-sort of person, as it were, I was sort of like just a shell filled up with alcohol and stuff, and some grief and...
I didn't even think about it, it's just like a
No, I didn't think about anything really. I used to enjoy seeing my wife and my daughter sort of once every week or two, and they always stuck by me, and I used to taught my daughter how to play chess, and she made me a lovely chessboard and chess pieces and that, inlaid wood and everything. But really, no, I was generally pretty good at remembering stuff, yeah. Because I've got a good memory, because when I was a kid, I was lucky being left-handed in the right-handed world, but I was dyslexic and couldn't read or write properly. I had a terrible stutter, twitches and stuff, and I had a pretty bad period in one particular school, which was run by teachers' violence, really, a lot of corporal punishment and stuff, which is pretty bad. So I had to develop a good memory for all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so how bad did it get, or like what was the lowest time that you can remember?
Well, the first time my bipolar really hit was, say, at that time when I first became an alcoholic, and through guilt and everything like that, I cut myself really, really badly, and I wanted to die. And through a God incident, people found me in my room in the nurse's home, they broke the door down. So I saved then. I suppose the worst time for me was years ago when I met that guy Andrew. I was in Ashford Hospital, and I'd been dry for about 8 months or so, I got very depressed and very anxious. I didn't have to be suicidal. And so, for me, that was that 3 months. There was no highs or anything. So that was bad for me, but it was good for my family because they knew I was in hospital. So,
Yeah.
so,
They
but,
knew it's going to get better.
yeah, and that was the worst time. That was the worst time for me. The highs of that were brilliant. You know, being on a, you've got different levels of. When you've got your depression on one side, you've got your stability on the other side, and you've got your mania and hypomania. You know, you can survive about two hours sleep a night, and that was great. You know, but then that lasts for about 18 months. But then you come bang, you come down really bad, really bad. But I have tried to commit suicide several times properly. I've done the overdoses because I didn't know what else to do, just to get out of the situation and go to hospital where you think you're going to get help.
Yes.
But once you're well, they just discharge you. You go back to the same situation that you were in the first place.
Yes.
It's a never-ending circle, really. It's even worse, having been, you know, being a nurse, and people expect you to behave in a certain way because they know you're a professional.
Yeah.
You're a professional. When you don't, you can't cure yourself in that respect. And unfortunately, the psychiatric nurses these days, although they have degrees, haven't had the amount of hands-on experience. Like when I did my training, it was a 3-year training, and out of the 3 years, about 2.5 years, I've actually spent hands-on with patients, and you'd be just studying at home and stuff. You didn't have the internet and all that sort of stuff, so you used to read a lot around the subject, and you turned out, you know, a good nurse, and you were able to. I went from psychiatry to doing general nursing up at King's in London. I loved that, working on the different wards. I was using my psychiatric experience, my interpersonal skills with people with physical illness. People with physical illness have you know, obviously get anxious, they get depressed, they get worried about things, and if you've got a base in psychiatry, you know, you can help them a lot with that, and also the nurses sort of learn quite a lot from it.
But when was the point where you really realised your drinking was a problem to you?
Like, you thought...
As soon as I started drinking, really. I suppose the first time I really realised that I shouldn't drink anymore was about 2 weeks after I realised I was an alcoholic. Well, I didn't realise I was an alcoholic. I knew it. I didn't know I was an alcoholic, but that was when it's evident that it was just needing it rather than wanting it.
Yeah.
Suicide attempt. It interrupted my student nurse training. I came out of hospital, I was looked after at home. The dismay of my poor mum's expression that her son tried to kill himself. But they, you know, my family got me sorted, and I went back to work, and I got my qualifications in RMN. I suppose my main qualification is PhD in life. So, anyway.
How many times did you try and stop drinking?
Oh, I don't know. I really don't know. Every time that my drink drove me. The problem with drinking and depression and mania all mixed together. The manic bit isn't too bad. People, you know, see you're manic. But when you're depressed, you don't think anybody can help you or anything can help you. When you drink on top of that, you feel self-disgust, self-hatred, despair. You don't think anybody can help you or love you, and you look back at all the bad things you've done, they all crowd in at once, and it's a bang, and you think the only thing to do is to die. And then of course, you feel, if you don't do it, you think, no, don't do it. And then the next day, you think, oh God, why did I think that? I let everybody down. And it's just a mishmash of total despair and that. Now, you know, it's a lot different now. That's pretty good. I'm 54 and unfortunately I've tried to give up smoking 3 times. But I will give up eventually, but you know, so I've got, you know, I've got a good few years left, so make the most of it. You know, I've got God and I've got Jesus on my side. What better can you get than that?
So as well as your family and your friends, did you ever seek advice from a rehabilitation clinic? A rehab, basically?
No, it was never offered
Was
to
it
me.
always your family?
No, because even though I knew drinking was a problem, to face life without it seems like you can't do it. So you've got the alcohol addiction, but with bipolar or manic depression, you can get addicted to that, because being in the middle, being stable is just so boring. You know, you're in a constant state. It's like going to the gym or pushing the heaviest weights 24/7. And of course, you crash at the end. Something bang, just within hours, you go right down to the bottom. But that's not the bottom that you create, that's the bottom that's there. You know, that's the bottom you can't get out of. You can't see that ladder. You can't see the light at the top of that ladder, at the top of the well. It's there, in the, you know, sort of superating, just sort of, it's just so horrible.
Excruciating.
Yeah, it's just,
Excruciating.
I can take any sort of physical pain, but mental pain is worse than physical pain.
Yeah, because you have to recover from it afterwards.
That's why some people that are prone to it, there's different diagnoses, but you get some people cut themselves or burn themselves and stuff like that. Difficult people to help. But you know, I've worked with those sort of people. They are the most exhausting people to work with, because they're very needy people, and you know, you can see people who have cut themselves and stuff like that. And there is a lot of help available for those people, but the problem is it's lengthy and it's very, for the professionals, it's very time consuming. And the people who really, really need help, you know.
I suppose you feel for them as well, because you've been in the same sort of situation. And it's hard to tear away from what's happening in your life and what's happening in theirs. Because sometimes if a person comes up to you and goes, "Oh my God, look at my life, it's a mess," and you goes, "Listen mate, been there, done it, bought a t-shirt, rise above it, get off your arse and do something about it."
That's what I can do now, but when you're working as a professional nurse, you're a member of a team and stuff like that, you have confidentiality, you have to protect yourself.
Yeah.
You're a professional, you can't help someone as a professional if you're putting your arm around them and crying with them. I mean, you can't do that, it's just not expected of you, and it also puts yourself at risk. There's been times when I've been with patients and I thought, I'd love to tell them how it works. But you can't, because you're a professional. But now, I'm, they call it users, I hate the name users, but I'm a member of different forums, Together, Rethink and Turning Point, and I can say what I like now, so I can do that. But and sometimes it's difficult to turn off, switch off, because you're giving so much of yourself personally. Whereas when you're a professional, you finish the shift, and I used to drive home, go to the pub or whatever, and that gives you that little bit of time to switch off. So you get the occasional patient who really does sap a lot of your strength and keeps on whizzing around in your head, and that's bad. That is very difficult. But so you have to be professional but compassionate. You have to show that you have feelings, but you can't help people. You can't be a professional with social workers, psychiatrists, your colleagues, stuff like that, if you're constantly crying about other people's problems.
So how did you mainly recover? Was it like the faith and Andrew and support from family?
was spiritually better than anyone else. And he thinks that, even though I haven't acknowledged it, that God's been looking after me all these years. For a purpose, which is now. Living in the here and now. Bad stuff in the past, it's gradually fading away. I can remember it. I still don't have the... I can remember it intellectually, as it were,
Yeah.
but I don't feel the pain
You don't
from
feel
it.
as though you've lived it. You feel
Yeah,
like it's just
well, I've got rid
a
of that pain. Jesus has taken that pain away from me. That's his function.
It's good to have someone to rely on and like believe in to keep you going.
That's right. So Tony thinks that I've been looked after spiritually, even though I've rejected God and Jesus at certain points in my life. I've not even thought about it at other points. But yeah, when we were drinking in the pub, Tony asked about sin, and he said how sin can be forgiven. And yeah, that that's a great weight off his shoulders when you know the right way to go about it. And also doing the 12 steps of AA, if you do them properly and honestly, with a good sponsor, it brings you closer to God. Because part of the thing in AA is you have to be able to put your faith in, they say a higher being or a higher power, but I actually think that a belief in God is very important. And a lot of people who are agnostics or atheists start doing the 12 steps, and I did it quite quickly because my relationship with God. So it can take people years, but people start going through it and they do have spiritual experiences. Because the bit where most people fail is on the steps 3, 4 and 5, where you've already decided in step 2 that you put your faith in a higher being. Then the main thing is you make an inventory of your character defects. So you look at all the people you've hurt and the people who've hurt you. You write it down. You have to be very honest, and then you go through it with your sponsor, because he's done 12 steps. He knows what a lot of alcoholics go through. So it's not like a counsellor telling you to do stuff, because that's the medical way of doing it. So you seek forgiveness where it's appropriate, so as long as it's not hurting someone else. So you don't gush out, I'm sorry, you don't do that. You just by your actions and through prayer, you ask God to cleanse you. And also that forgiveness is good for you, but to forgive people is even better. When your enemies, like the guys that did this to me in Faversham, 4 of them kicked shit out of me for money, for drugs and stuff. And when I saw those young guys in court, based in Crown Court, I saw these 2 guys, they were in their suits and that, and they were staring at the floor, their parents were there, and I thought, you bastards, what have you done to your life? One got 4 years and the other got 2.5. And I thought, for 200 quid for some drugs, you've ruined a lot of your life. And I felt really sorry for them. And I forgave them there and then. And so I wasn't carrying around all that anger and stuff like that. I did have a beard most of the time to hide that, but I don't mind it now. It's part of my life. It's part of me, all the different scars, they've all got a story.
How's life improved since you gave up?
Wow. Tony, how's my life improved?
1000%.
There we go.
But you saved a lot more money.
Yeah, when I first came up, I got some bulbs. I started sorting out the flat, my balcony, got plants there. Invested in tropical fish and stuff like that, which got 4 tanks in my living room, got some blue lobsters, and I know where I am from day to day. In the past, I couldn't say whether they're going to be high or low the next day or the next week or the next year. I can plan my week. I carry a diary. I can, as a user in the things, I can talk to people. I spoke to a guy yesterday, in fact. His friend was worried about him. He was under mental health services, but nobody could get out to see him. He was in some sort of crisis. He filled me in a bit about his history. So, being a professional, I knew what was happening more or less. So I went into his house and talked to him and stuff like that, and made him feel better. I saw him yesterday, and he said, "Oh, you know, it was lovely of you to come round and help me, Graham." You know, so I got that. Plus, tomorrow I'm in Sittingbourne with bigwigs in the mental health services, the community mental health services, saying my bit. I can say what I like because I'm a user, within reason, but also I've got a professional aspect of it as well. So those sort of people listen to me. I've got respect within those groups, I've got respect within church. Tonight I'm going to home groups, so we do some Bible reading, we talk about, you know, things in general. And they're nice, you know, really nice people. And that refuels you, you know, sort of midweek. Because being a Christian can be pretty hard work. Because people will have a little bit of a go, and sometimes it's a bit difficult reaching people. The people that are difficult to reach are the people that need it most. So it is a bit hard. So, and Sundays I enjoy going to church, and I'm being there on a Sunday, and I help with Nick on Saturday, and I just know where I am. And I'm sober, my eyesight's good, my health isn't, my back's killing me, but that's because I do stupid things like squat the floor with my hands and knees, you know. But I think if you're in pain, you might as well get on and you it's pain. If you're feeling down, pain's worse than if you're feeling okay. There's quite a lot of psychological aspect to pain. So yeah, so my life is, yeah, people listen to what I say, people respect me.
It must make you feel good to have that sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
Like the fact that you're respected.
Yeah. It does. It makes, you know, this is the greatest highlight coming on and seeing you guys, because, you know, you listen to my story, I've listened to Connor's story, and, you know, you're in a good place now to, with all the problems you guys must have had and stuff like that, to network it out through other people, and hopefully, when you see people older than yourself, maybe your older brothers, sisters, mums, dads, all that sort of stuff, people make mistakes, and they carry on making mistakes. But I think if you look a bit deeper, why did my dad hate me so much, or why didn't mum cuddle me? They've got their own agenda.
Yeah.
They're a product of something that you don't know about. So I've got stuff that I did have about my parents. You know, why did they do things and this, that, and the other?
Yeah.
But you know, they went through the war and stuff like that. They had different responsibilities from me, and that I made mistakes. One thing, I never slapped my daughter ever. I only raised my voice to her once, and that was only because I was taking her to school, and she was upset about something, and she got a bag and hit me in the face. I was pulling out the junction in the car. I never swore at her, never hit her, always treated her with respect, and through all, you know, since she was born 22 years ago, she's always loved me.
That's a great feeling of accomplishment to know that your family loves you so much.
What a beautiful human being into the world. Unfortunately, she's got my bad teeth. She had to have corrective surgery and stuff like that. But all the rest of it, she's inherited more of her mum's stuff than mine. But we brought her up well. Even through the ups and downs, dipping in and out of being with the wife and then in the car, to backs and forwards and through the, you know, I mean, I hope she doesn't remember it, but she did at one point. I was arrested at gunpoint when I was on a hire by the SWAT squad. Going outside my house and searchlights and a couple pulled out, came out from the doorway, on the ground, bang on the ground, and got a gun pointed at you, and you know, my daughter witnessed that. I spent a month in a locked up unit at Canterbury Hospital. Discharged without any support, lived on the streets with fellow alcoholics, and that's where I felt I belonged, because those are people that weren't judging me, because you were just another guy sleeping in the shop doorway, sharing your beer, sharing your fag, sharing a bit of dope. Yes, it was an eye-opener, you know, sleeping in the doorway when it's freezing cold, being moved on. Just, you know, waiting for the first cafe to open so you get a cup of tea or something like that. So I lived like that for a while, which was, you know, part of life really, I suppose.
Is there anything that you did do that you do regret doing?
Drinking.
Overall.
Well, at one point I wasn't the most faithful of husbands. I regret that. I regret not talking to my wife about things before things happened.
Suppose you regret the whole SWAT situation with your daughter.
Yeah, she's never mentioned it. She might have forgotten it by now. Yeah, I mean, there's been lost opportunities that I should have grasped that have made things different for me.
Would you ever go back to drinking?
No. As far as I know. I mean, I can take non-alcoholic wine when I take communion.
Go
Go to the pub, go with my mate, go to the pub. I did go through a bit of a bad patch a couple of months ago. It was really freezing cold when we went to the pub. We had a black coffee each and he had a whiskey mac. I used to love whiskey macs. I just thought, oh, whiskey mac would be lovely. I went through a bit of a craving sort of thing for a couple of weeks, but I came out of it. The fantasising about bad times drinking is fairly easy to handle, because it's, you know, it's pretty off-putting when you consider all the years that you've wasted and the money you wasted. Then came the fantasising about the good stuff, going to a country pub and, you know, people drinking a real ale that you used to like drinking, like London Pride or Young's Original, something like that. And that was quite distressing. But now I can sit with my mate and think, oh, it'd be nice to have a Pazza or a bottle of Beck's. Yeah. That would taste really, really nice. But not for me, not anymore. I can handle that. You know, it's a good place to be. Good place to be.
So you can still go out to the local pub and enjoy yourself,
Yeah.
but not have to drink. But if you do want one, then you can leave at one.
I'm not going to risk that.
Oh, so you haven't?
I'm not going to risk having the one. I'm not going to... someone made a mistake the other day in a group, and this guy had been off drink for 4 days, and this counsellor said, well, you know, this is the first 4 days of the rest of your life without drinking. I mean, you don't say that to someone that's just coming off. You don't say that to someone that's on drugs or you're never going to take it again, because you can't get your head around it. You're psychologically, physically addicted. And to think the rest of your life, it's like thinking, you know, I'm never going to see my mum ever again. You know, you can't, you know people are going to die, but you don't think about them dying, do you, generally?
Unless you know that they've got like something that is going to kill them eventually.
Yeah.
just waiting for it to happen,
Yeah.
which I've been through myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think the taste of it is nice, but I've tried limited drinking before. It just doesn't work. I'm an all or nothing person. When I get a bit between my teeth, bang, I go for it. And so I'm not going to drink. Why tempt it? You know, why have the? Because I know what happened. It happened before. I've been 14 months off the drink. Had 2 pints on Friday. My mate at a pub. A couple of pints of real ale. Didn't have anything the weekend. And on the Monday I had 8 pints and I was driving. So that's how quickly. And then within a week I was back to loads of beer and stuff like that. So it's just not worth. It's just not worth the risk. You know, why put yourself in a position that you don't have to? I mean, okay, be careful crossing the road. You don't go and jump out in front of a car and expect God to save you. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? You know, you've got to take responsibility for yourself. Now, I have to take responsibility for myself. When people are distressed in any emotional sort of way, whether drink, drugs, physical, emotional abuse, rape, stuff like that, a lot of the counsellors these days are into, we don't do rescuing, you have to take responsibility for yourself. Now, what a load of bollocks. If you are in a really, really bad way, you want someone to look after you. You want someone to put their arms around you and say, I'm going to look after you. Don't worry about anything. I'll look after you. And that's rescuing people. And then it's like, you know, with kids, you gradually take more and more responsibility for their lives as they can handle it. And that's what you do with people. Sometimes, as I said, sometimes the police have to arrest people, sometimes you have to seclude people. It can take months. Sometimes people are very disturbed to get the right medication and work with their families, get their housing sorted, all that sort of stuff. From the ordinary man on the street to a top businessman, consultant psychiatrist they look after before there'll be a mentally ill schizophrenic chap on you. And yeah, you have to nurture people, and yeah, you sometimes people just cannot take responsibility for themselves because you're not equipped. As good an upbringing as you might have, things happen that you're not equipped for. So yeah, sometimes you're in a thing where you do need to rescue people, I think, you know.
Well, we really do appreciate your honesty, and we really do thank you for coming down here. We're just coming to our last question now.
Okay.
What advice would you give to young people, maybe if they're starting to go through this and they are going through this?
Talk. The biggest problem that we have now, I think, is the culture, which I didn't have when I was growing up, of computer games and the internet and all that sort of stuff. I would say take half an hour off the computer game, talk to your mum and dad, your mum and your sisters, your granddad, other people that you're close to that you respect. Even if you don't have a lot of respect for your parents, they might not show you respect. The longer you hurt, the more ingrained it becomes, the more difficult it is. It's like cancer. Hurt and anger and resentment is like cancer. It's very small. The more you fuel it, the bigger it grows, and the more it'll overtake you. So put your investment in, when you have kids, invest in your mum and your dad, or your uncle, your aunt, your granddad, your grandma. Just listen to what people have to say. And try not to judge people too much.
Don't bottle it up inside, basically.
Yeah, talk to your mates. If you're the sort of person that likes that maybe some people have more aggression than others, you know, boxing club, you know, if you're that sort of person, do something physical, get it out of you. I mean, some idiots say you shouldn't teach. Oh, there was a thing on the television last night about should kids have toy guns. Kids have always had toy guns and that. I mean, what a best, yeah. if you're in a relationship with another guy or a woman or whatever,
Yeah.
before you go to bed at night, try and set all your differences sorted. The silent approach, I hate. That doesn't get anywhere, it just causes dysfunction completely. You know, if you're in a whatever sort of relationship it is, just be as open and as honest as you possibly can, and look at the other person's point of view. Try not to judge people too harshly. And for the general stuff in the world, just try and deal with what you're doing locally. Just deal with what you can deal with at the moment. Don't cloud everything up with people you don't know, because they all have their issues. Your guys, you know, bombs and stuff, they've got their issues. You know, at the end of the day, we judge them. We don't know them as people, do we? We know them as faces or as masks. And yeah, there's the old saying, love the sinner, but not the sin.
It's great. It's great to hear that you're so passionate with getting young people to stop doing what you yourself have done. And it's
Try
great
to
to
drink,
hear.
yeah. If you're going to drink, try and do it sensibly. If you are going to drink, pick who you drink with, or you take drugs. I know people are going to take drugs, but choose who you do it with, you know, and try and be safe. If you are, the thing is, don't be a follower in everything, you know, because your mates are all getting plastered or, you know, smoking or taking tablets or whatever. You don't have to do that. You can have a good time without it. You have a better time without it. Because once you start getting addicted to the highs with your acid and all that sort of stuff, and your coke, you need more and more and more to get the same result. And that just leads to death, basically. And I can have a good time. I go to the pub with my mate in Rochester, drum and bass going and people getting pissed around me. I can be sober, I can be drinking, I can see everything going on. I can walk to the toilet, I'm not bumping into people, not drink sober. I can see trouble brewing and either sort it or walk away. Whereas when you're pissed or drugged up, you get yourself into all sorts of trouble, even though it might not be your fault. So do stuff, if you're going to do it in moderation. Speed to do a rave. You know, if you're going to do it, make sure you don't do it too much and make sure that you've got people with you to look after each other. Because that will happen in life, you know.
Yeah.
Head night, stag nights, and pub crawls. Just, you know, just moderate. If you make a mistake, try and learn from it. If you hurt someone, talk to them about it. That's what I would say.
Thank you.
That's all right? My pleasure.